Welcome, everyone, to another edition of PhinManiacs Live. This is a special shortened edition as we're going to be previewing the Dolphins game against the Jacksonville Jaguars. So we're not going to spend too much time on this, maybe 45 minutes or so. And basically, we're just going to go over some key matchups. When my panel eventually gets here, we're gonna talk about we're gonna do some previews. We're gonna predict the end of the game, the results, and I'll have Matthew Kanata and Chad Ronnebaum joining me for this show. So when they get here, we'll be able to do some of that stuff. But I'm just gonna spend a little bit of time here just talking about the game in general, and let's do a quick recap of what led up to what's been going on. So mostly people on Twitter for the past few days now have been extremely upset about the fact that the Dolphins did not absolutely completely annihilate the Washington Redskins. And I don't think that was a smart way to do things. I don't think that was really smart to consider because this is the NFL. It's going to happen a lot of the time. It's never a wise idea to decide, well, we're going to annihilate this team because they are this team. You can ask the New England Patriots from last year how badly they should have beaten down on the Oakland Raiders, and yet they were able to give them a run for their money for quite a long time. So Washington giving us a hard time, I don't have a problem with it per se. What I do have a problem with is the fact that they came out slow again. I would have rather they had managed to fight back for a while and not have to only feels like they only took like 6 minutes of possession time to they only took 6 minutes of possession on offense, and that in itself is a problem. If they can't get 2, 3 and outs is a terrible way to start things. And needless to say, it's not a good idea, and it's not a very good result when your offense can't seem to stay on the field for longer than 3 minutes at a time. That's not the way it's supposed to be done. That is not at all what was seen in the preseason. And needless to say, I'm not sure what to expect at this point. I'm hoping that Jacksonville will be able to give us a easier time of it. I'm hoping that their defense is not as powerful as apparently as powerful as Washington's was. Washington actually has a pretty decent defensive line, and I need to remember that going forward because you got Terrence Knighton and you got Kerrigan. So it's not like it's a walk in the park. These guys know what they're doing on defense, particularly on the defensive line part of it. So Jacksonville has Jared Odrick. So we're going to wind up seeing him again. I'm sure they're going to have a nice little reunion because I'm sure they're still boys out over there. So he'll say what's up to Cameron Wake, and he'll say what's up to Olivier Vernon. Maybe Jared Odrick will try to recruit Vernon to go to Jacksonville because they still have money to burn as far as I know. So it's something to look at for sure. Now, the offensive line for the Dolphins might be in some trouble because according to reports from last week, the Jaguars were able to put some key pressure on Cam Newton. Now, we can look at that and say, well, that's just the Carolina Panthers offensive line being horrible because it is pretty horrible. They don't even have They don't even have Jonathan Martin, and I guess you can consider that a blessing in disguise. But they've been running out of players to stick in that spot. They don't have anybody to block for Newton, and they still managed to get beat down pretty much by Carolina, even though they actually put some pressure on him. So knowing that, and so considering we pretty much showed Carolina that we had the better starting lineup when we played them in the preseason, you would assume that we would be able to give Jacksonville a lot of trouble. But again, you can't assume that right off the bat. You have to be able to realize that, well, it's still the NFL. We still have to take a look very carefully and make sure that we're aware that it's not going to be easy. It's going to be a problem. There's going to be issues. No game is perfect. I'm sure that the Jaguars are going to be taking the strategy that Washington employed and cut block the crap out of Ndamukong Suh and double team him and make him fight for every single inch that he gains in the game. And just looking at the injury report for the Jaguars, there's a lot of people who are going to wind up being out for that game. You have Andre Branch at defensive end. He's out. You have cornerback Dwayne Grants. He's out. Senderick Marks is out. So Senderick Marks, I believe, he gave us a lot of trouble last year. but since he's going to be out, that's not going to be an issue for the offensive side of the ball. And they didn't end their signed tight end superstar / not superstar because Peyton Manning factor. Tight end Julius Thomas, he's also out. So, yeah, there's not a whole lot going for the Jaguars as of right now because it seems like a lot of their players are down for the count. Luke Jokel at left tackle, that's actually a big one. He hasn't been spectacular since he got into the league, but as far as he's still their starting left tackle. So knowing that, if Olivier Vernon can play, and it is probable that he will play, it should be very interesting to watch because Vernon is going to be playing up against a backup left tackle. And then you're going to add that Ndamukong Suh is going to wind up dealing with a double team. So that's 2 more linemen gone. And then you have Cameron Wake, who also at times requires a double team of his own. So that takes 2 more linemen. So that essentially leaves the left tackle on an island with Olivier Vernon, and he's going to be a backup. So that in itself should be giving some encouragement to the Dolphins' defensive line for the next game. Also to keep in mind is that Rashad Jones is questionable for the Dolphins. That's a pretty big one considering he's pretty much the captain of the defense now. We can talk about how the middle linebacker is the captain all we want to. Kelvin Shepard in the middle. No. He's not the captain of this defense. That would be Rashad Jones. It was going to be Louis Delmas because he had a real handle on the defense, and supposedly he's been seen walking around acting like nothing was wrong, which is incredible to me that this man has been able to recover so quickly from just having a surgery not even a month ago. So it's incredible to me that we had to put Delmas on the injured reserve because let me just talk about Delmas for a minute. I have never seen somebody recover from an ACL injury that quickly. It baffles me, really. I've never seen anything like it. I know that I know somebody who managed to recover from an ACL without ever actually needing the surgery. I know somebody who was told that if you don't get surgery, you will never walk again. And she wound up walking just fine in defiance of the doctors and saying, look, I didn't need surgery. Here you go. But to recover from such a severe injury that fast, it's baffling to me, really. And I see that my friend Chad Ronenbaum, my co-host, has finally joined in. So I'm going to introduce him. Chad, welcome to the show, man. Really appreciate you joining me today.
Thanks, Lewis. Good to be here.
All right. So just previewing the game today. Shouldn't be that long of a show. So there's 2 of me. Hello?
Hello.
Okay, there's 2 of me. Hello, Matt.
How are you? How are you guys doing today?
I'm doing all right. Glad to have you guys with me today. So we're just going to preview the Jacksonville game. Shouldn't be that long. We'll maybe go 45 minutes top.
I just popped open a beer, getting ready, sitting down, gonna go car shopping after this, watch some college football. Set up my 8 TVs for tomorrow. We're looking good.
Yeah.
All right.
8 TVs. Matt, how many? You have 8 TVs?
I have, let's see, I have 1, 2, 3. I have 3 televisions. That's a lie. I have 4 televisions. I have 3 laptops and 1 iPad.
Living the dream.
So in total, yes, 8 games I watch if there's 8 games on at that time. Of course, it's early in the season. There's going to be 8 games on at 1 o'clock or so, and then slims down at 4 o'clock. I put the Dolphins on the big screen, of course. I got the red zone on the second smallest screen. I got the local games on each other TVs, and I got, a viewer's choice, whoever comes over, whatever game they want to watch on one of the laptops, and then I throw, some other fantasy-relevant matchups on the other laptops, and then, the game of the week that's not on, that I'm not watching, I throw that on as well. So it's fun. Kathy was over last week and got to, hang out with another Dolphins fan. I'm usually with Cowboys fans all the time, so it was nice.
You have so much stuff with you, man. How do you even pay attention to 8 games at once? Like, seriously.
Well, that's what everybody was saying last week. They said we can't even focus on one game, and I couldn't either. So it was a little hard to focus. But listen, it's like the preseason. You get all the rust out, and you get your training going. You got to start focusing again. It was week 1, buddy. The offenses didn't look good week 1, did they? Not many did. So listen, by week 3, week 4, after the bye week for the Dolphins, we'll be on our A game, focusing on the games that we need to focus on while everything else is going around us.
So after week 4, your brain is going to be able to handle watching 8 games, 16 teams
Oh,
at once.
absolutely. I skipped out preseason this year. I didn't have the time with my new job, but listen, give me a few weeks, just like Peyton Manning. Give Peyton Manning a few weeks, and his offense is going to be clicking. Give me a few weeks, and my television and living room is going to be rocking and rolling with me focusing on what I need to focus on.
Whatever that may be. Okay, so we're going to preview the Jacksonville Jaguars and Miami Dolphins game. They're headed up to Jacksonville where the Metro Diner is situated, and yes, I do plan on spamming that restaurant to everybody on my Twitter feed. Anybody who's going to Jacksonville, make sure you look up the Metro Diner and go there for lunch. Order the Yo Holla for dessert. That's my PSA for the day.
Yo Holla!
Essentially, yeah. That's what you're going to be saying after you eat it. It's this French toast concoction with bananas and blueberries and cream cheese. Like, oh my God, it's to die for.
So many carbs. So many carbs in that.
Oh yeah, it'll kill you, but it'll be worth it.
Now you're making me hungry.
Well, food is also important for football.
I think I'm gonna have some eggs for breakfast, anyways.
They have eggs there.
See. Even though it's almost lunchtime.
All right, so I was just going over a quick recap of what led up to the whole debacle on this coming week because the Redskins game pissed off everybody. They were like, "Oh, we suck again, 8-8. Here we go," because they just barely squeaked by the Redskins. So, okay, yes, you didn't get your blowout. You didn't get your extreme domination that you were expecting. That doesn't mean 8-8. It's still the NFL. Nothing comes for free. And I told people all the time, I don't take anything for granted. If you won, you won. Accept it, move on. And if you have to, lick your wounds and make sure that you don't make the same mistakes you did the next week. And what? Matthew Canada joined this. Okay, now there's 2 of him.
I'm here. Sorry. We're good.
Okay, so I'm going to mute the other one because why not? I'm so confused now.
I should have signed out of the other one. We're good. Just go.
All right. So, no, Matthew's clone. Let me ask you both. What do you? Just because you weren't here for the last show, what do you take away from what happened in the Redskins game last week?
Are you talking to me?
I'm talking to you and your clone.
All right. Listen. That was a real frustrating game to watch. It seemed like the Dolphins didn't have. It seemed like it was watching one of the games from Buffalo last year. Where we couldn't get anything going. Just really sloppy, really just, I don't know. It was a weird game, but it was that feeling where the Dolphins were going to pull it out in the end. Tannehill looks so good in the 2-minute offense. It's like, given the ball with 2 minutes left, there's a great possibility the Dolphins are going to score. I would love to see the Dolphins come out. I know there's many disadvantages, and we've seen the Dolphins do this last year, where they came out in the no-huddle the first drive of the game, and they went 3 and out. So their first drive was done, and the defense was right on the field right away. So I know Joe Philbin doesn't want to, keep the defense out there so much. But the first drive of the game, listen, go no huddle. I mean, if you don't get the first down, if you go 3 and out, it's not like the defense has been playing all game already. They've had their rest before the game. They haven't even started playing yet. When it gets dangerous is when you kick the ball off, play defense, then try to go no huddle, then go 3 and out, and then put your defense back on the field. I would love to see Joe Philbin take the ball to begin the game, and he's not real keen on doing that, even though I don't think he had the choice last game because the Redskins won the toss, I'm pretty sure, elected to defer. So I'm not sure Joe Philbin had that choice week 1. But anyways, I would love to see them come out in the no-huddle offense, get Ryan Tannehill in some rhythm, get those short passes going, move the chains. We saw Tannehill take some shots down the field when he had the first downs open. I have mixed feelings on that. On one hand, you have a guy, Bruce Arians is an amazing coach, and I've read a lot about him because I just love the way he coaches. And he tells all his quarterbacks, he says, I don't care if it's 2nd and 1, 3rd and 1. If you have a shot that you think you can make down the field, you need to take that shot 100% of the time. And that's what his quarterbacks do. So you'd like to see that killer instinct in your quarterback, but you also like to see, someone like Tom Brady who gets the short passes and keeps those chains moving and keeps their defense on the field. So I have mixed feelings on that as well. Lamar Miller definitely needs to touch the ball more. He's not touching it enough, and I don't know why he's not touching it enough, but that needs to happen. And Ndamukong Suh, everyone's saying, oh, he was not worth the money, blah, 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 blah. He had an awful game. But, if you really watched that game and just didn't watch what was going on with the run game, you would have seen that they moved everything away from Suh. I mean, everything. I don't think they ran at him. Maybe once or twice they did. So the Dolphins need to learn how to play with Ndamukong Suh. It's a transition experience for everybody. Kevin Coyle, Ndamukong Suh himself, the guys around them. They need to learn how to scheme with Sue in their lineup. They need to realize that they're not going to run up the middle, that they're going to run to the outside. Get your right players in there. Get players to set the edge the proper way. Avoid the cut blocks or avoid them as much as possible and brush them off like they've been working on practice this week. And get going after the quarterback and the running back. I do think the Dolphins are going to come out ready to fire on Sunday. I think they're a little pissed off that they got kind of ran over like that, especially with all the additions to the defense. So I'm really looking forward to see how they respond to Jacksonville.
Okay, your turn, Chad.
You want me to talk about what I feel about the Washington game, you mean, or?
Yeah, pretty much. We're gonna do a quick recap of that.
I wasn't as negative as I think a lot of people were on it, and I mean, I just in the NFL to expect teams to blow a team out that's hard to do. So I mean, it's the NFL, and I was just saying, like, if I look at a game, I look at it on if teams are going to play 10 times, how many times out of 10 are they going to win? And I would say the Dolphins would probably beat the Redskins 8 out of 10 times or something like that. And so you just got to realize that, things don't always go right. And to me, the sign of a good team is when they play bad and still win. And that's what I thought Miami did. And I thought the biggest issue in the game was that Ryan Tannehill just was a little bit off in that game. He threw some passes that were just a little bit off. And the Redskins were able to, in the first half anyway, convert third and shorts over and over and over to sustain drives. But as I was mentioned on the last podcast, in their strategy when they were doing a lot of those cut blocks and stuff, they were focusing on trying to get 3 or 4 yards because they were executing a game plan that was designed to protect Kirk Cousins, because I think they were more worried about him having a very bad game than they were even winning the game. And so they were trying to situate them to do anything possible to not get blown out and put him in a situation where he had to throw the football. So, I guess I wasn't too worried about it. They shut the run down a lot better in the second half. And even though they were successfully running the ball there in the first half, I didn't feel like the Dolphins were just getting pushed around and dominated. So it was a game plan. The Dolphins adjusted to it. And then, in the second half, they completely shut them out from scoring at all. So I don't consider that a terrible game. Jacksonville, just to start the preview a little bit of that game, if we can't throw up 28 points on Jacksonville, we're going to have to start really looking at what we're doing offensively, because Jacksonville right now is decimated. I mean, Senderick Marks is out, who I think was their best interior lineman, and I think both their starting corners are out. They're starting backup corners, even though their corners have game experience. They're starting lower level corners, and so I don't see them being able to real successfully control the line of scrimmage, and I don't see them even in the vicinity of being able to cover the talent Miami has at wide receiver. So given that talent differential that Miami has going right now into that game, they've got to be able to score points. So that's a big thing for me.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Jaguars their depth chart right now, and according to what it says here, Andre Branch is their starting defensive end, and he will not be playing. He will not be playing on Sunday. And then you have Senderick Marks. He's their starting defensive tackle, so he will not be playing either. And okay, so let's see what else we got here. Let's see, Dwayne Gratz. He is their backup cornerback, so he won't be playing. So they'll be having Devon House, their starter, there. And if something happens to him, then they're going to be going with a third stringer. Then you have, let's see what else we got here. Julius Thomas, he's out, of course, so we won't have to be dealing with him. Then you have Jonathan Cyprin. He's a strong safety for the Jaguars. He's actually their starting strong safety, so we're going to be dealing with a backup there too. So yeah, it seems like the only people that are actually going to be staying in the game for sure are their linebacker core, which is Telvin Smith, Paul Posluszny, and Dan Skuta. Okay, I don't know how to say his name. Posluszny. Whatever. He had a lot of help from Mark Duffner, who was the linebacker coach before he came down to Miami last year. So he's gonna be a pretty decent person to look out for. And then of course you have our boy Jared Odrick there. He's apparently running as their defensive end instead of a defensive tackle up there. So we're gonna be dealing with him all the time. So he's going to be a problem, I think, because we all know that Jared Odrick is good. He's not Ndamukong Suh good. He wouldn't have been worth keeping over him, but he knows what he's doing. And then you have Toby Gerhart, who's I believe he's their backup running back now, since TJ Yeldon took over as the starter, so he's not going to be an issue either. And then you have he's the third string running back. I'm sorry, Denard Robinson, the converted quarterback, is their backup running back now. And then you have Marquise Lee. He's not going to be playing, I don't think. Yes, he is. He's on that list as probable. So, and then you have Rashad Green. He's also probable. And so yeah. Oh, and Luke Jokel, their starting left tackle. He's questionable. So, if he doesn't play, then Olivier Vernon is going to get to go one-on-one with Sam Young all game long, and that in itself should be an excellent matchup, because if you have Ndamukong Suh, he's gonna demand a double team, and then you have Cameron Wake, who very often will also demand a double team, and then you have Earl Mitchell, and then you have Olivier Vernon, who's going to be all by themselves waiting to see what happens, assuming, of course, that Wake even plays. If he doesn't play, then we're going to have an issue. So it looks like the Dolphins are in a prime position to actually blow out this team. However, again, I'm not going to take anything for granted. Cameron Wake, questionable. Derek Shelby, questionable. Rashad Jones, questionable. And then you have Deion Sims, who's just playing out. That's going to be – it should be an easy enough game to win, but, again, you don't take anything for granted.
Yeah, the big thing for me is I want to see the offense help our defense for a change. And we had way too many games they didn't last year either. And we're one of the worst teams in the league at scoring in the first quarter right now. And I'm going back to last year. Obviously, we've only played a game this year, but it makes such a big difference when we're playing quarterbacks like Blake Bortles. We don't want to let Jacksonville play a tight game, do exactly what the Redskins are doing, where they're running short runs, short passes, and protecting their quarterback, and let their defense keep it close on the other side. We need our offense to go down, get touchdowns early, and force Jacksonville to throw the football. And so it's so much harder to play defense when the game is tight all game, because you have to defend the run and pass, and that's an enormous difference for a team that doesn't have a very good passing game. And it's questionable whether you can even say Buffalo does, but we're not playing any teams right now that have really good passing games. We're not playing the Patriots yet. We're not playing the Packers and these teams that can really throw the football well. And we should be taking advantage of that. And there's no better way to do that than on offense. Just score points. You can completely remove like TJ Yeldon from the game. You can render him almost useless if you throw up 14 points right away and make it very difficult, because what team feels good about being down 14-0 and still trying to run the ball against Ndamukong Suh and the Dolphins defense? They're going to have to change their game plan up a little bit, and that's when we have an enormous advantage with Brent Grimes, and you're playing inexperienced quarterbacks. And so that's what I want to see. I'm tired of this having to have our defense win the game at the end, having to have our defense play like flawless. And when I see people get really critical of our defense, I get like, it's frustrating because the number of snaps they played in the first half of that Washington game, it's unbelievable they shut them down in the second half. Most defenses would have just been smoked, tired, and they'd have been able to really run the ball effectively and move it in the second half, but we're fortunate at the depth of our defensive line. So I think it's time in a game like this, if we can't go down the field and score points on a defense, you just listed off the guys that are missing. I mean, they're missing two of their starting defensive linemen. They're missing a starting safety. They're missing a slot corner. I mean, you take that all away from the Dolphins. You take all those players away, I'd be like thinking, oh my God, there's no way we're going to be able to hold up on defense. We're missing too many guys. So I don't know how we can expect to score points on a team like Buffalo if we can't score points on that Jacksonville defense right now.
And I think that's where it comes in, is that if this is where the overreactions from last week might actually be legitimate this week, because like you said, Chad, it's not like we're playing a bunch of starters. There's like almost half their defense is going to be composed of backups. So we need to be able to show that we can ram the ball down their throats, air it out, and make sure they know that we know what we're doing. If this might be the case where if we don't win by a substantial margin, that's when we have to look at things and like, okay, what the heck is going on? I understand Blake Bortles, he's inexperienced, but he is getting better, so he's slowly developing. He might take a Tannehill kind of thing, a type of development plan. He might take the slow and steady, slow cooker kind of way of developing. And if that's the case, then good for Jacksonville. They'll have a Tannehill of their own. And of course, they have TJ Yeldon, who's a really good running back, and Washington managed to ram it down our throats with Alfred Morris. If Jacksonville can do the same with TJ Yeldon, I would not be happy about it, but I'm the same. I don't think TJ Yeldon is that bruiser kind of back that Alfred Morris is. So it's a different kind of game plan. So the Dolphins need to be able to play some hard defense on these Jaguars and prove that, okay, last week was a fluke. We're playing a bunch of your backups. Let's just have some fun with this. Let's beat them down and make sure that they know that we're not a joke of an organization. We're not going to lose to Jacksonville's backups. Like, never mind losing to Jacksonville. Losing to Jacksonville, like I understand. I've been saying this whole time that any given Sunday, that is true. But there are some teams, admittedly, that you just look at them and it's like, we can't lose to these guys. We just can't. Because if we do lose, then it's going to be embarrassing. I'm sure that Kansas City felt absolutely humiliated last season when they lost that game to Oakland. I'm sure they're absolutely ticked off that Oakland managed to beat them despite going. I don't think they'd won a game up until that point. So to be the team that lost to Oakland must have been the most humiliating experience for them. We cannot lose to Jacksonville. If it was all their starters, like they're all healthy, they're ready to go, and let's go and fight and make this a difficult game, then maybe, yes, I would give it to them. But we're playing their backups. That in itself should be enough to say, okay, we've got a really good shot to make this a game. Let's go out there and ram it down their throats. This should not be a close game in all seriousness.
Well, yeah, I agree. And again, to me, it comes back to offense. So if we score points early, I think it completely changes their game plan. And I just don't think they have a whole stable of great wide receivers, and Blake Bortles can just light the scoreboard up. And you want him having to throw the football a lot. If we allow them to just go ahead and get 2-3 yards on every carry and make it third and short every time and try to convert those, and if they don't, that's all right. We won't score on our offense, so they can continue to do that. That's exactly what they want, because then they don't put Blake Bortles in a situation where he has to throw the football. And we can't allow them to be comfortable on offense.
I agree with you both. I've been following I don't gamble on games. I play fantasy football, and one of the things I've been doing this year, when it comes down to deciding who to play and there's a close decision on my lineup, I look at the over and under on the games, and I look at the point spread on the games, because that kind of tells you a little bit. Vegas knows what they're doing. That's why Vegas always wins. The Miami Dolphins are favored by over 5 points on Sunday. I think the line opened up at like 6.5. It may have dropped down to 5.5 with the injury news. But when you're on the road, the standard for Vegas is to give the home team -3 if all things are pretty much equal. We know things aren't pretty much equal to the Dolphins and the Jaguars. The Dolphins are favored. That is a big favorite. -5.5, -6 on the road. I mean, like I said, Vegas knows what they're doing. So for the Dolphins to lose this game would be a huge upset. And you're right, guys. They can't lose this game. This is a game they should win. The Jaguars' offensive line is in shambles. Their defense isn't the greatest. They have a second-year quarterback. They have a rookie running back. They have a few receivers who are looking to break out. Marquise Lee, Allen Robinson, some other guys. But the Dolphins have way more talent. They need to go and they need to kick some ass, and they need to just go away with the win and look to Buffalo in Week 3. Because you're right, Chad. If they can't beat Buffalo, they can't beat Jacksonville, or if they can't move the ball against the Jacksonville defense, it's going to be Buffalo all over again from last season when the Dolphins play them in Week 3. And I'm concerned about that game because Rex Ryan is one hell of a defensive coach. He knows all the Dolphins' tendencies. He knows everything. So we really need to go into Week 3 2-0 into a division game. And if we don't, then it's going to be bad news for the Dolphins heading into the next few weeks.
Well, Matt, let me ask you. Hello. There's an echo.
You're good.
Okay. So. Okay, I still hear it, but whatever. Okay. How much does it take? I can't talk with the echo. My brain can't function right now. Hello, testing. Okay, that's better. Have you ever had that time when you echo your own voice back into your head and you just suddenly can't talk anymore? I always thought that it can't be that difficult, but it's like, okay, can't function. Need.
When I talk to myself, that happens all the time.
Yeah, it's like, oh,
I
that
hate
hurt.
that. I hate
That
that.
hurts.
It
I've
drives
never.
me nuts. It
I
drives me
don't.
nuts.
I think I've experienced that maybe once or twice, but it really shuts you down. So anyway, how much do you take into Vegas's odds making? Because I mean, seriously, you looked at Harvard and they came up with this convoluted way of saying, oh well, the Dolphins are the third best team in the AFC and they have this and such chance to win the Super Bowl, and they have this complex formula and all that wonderful stuff. And of course, nobody takes it seriously. So why do they take Vegas seriously?
Because Vegas knows what they're doing. I mean, if you're a betting man and you get 50% right, you're doing well. If you get 53% right, you're making profit. Very rarely will you see anybody get over 60% correct when they bet. In the long run, Vegas 95% of the time always comes out on top. And they're bookies and they have inside information. We know they do. They see all the bets coming in from people who might have other inside information. They draw the lines where they need to draw them. And when you have, I mean, if it's -3 Jaguars, then I'm going to say it's a toss-up, right? Because the road team usually gets -3 to begin with. But you got a team going on the road favored by over 5 points, 5.5, let's say 6, because I think that's what it opened up with 6.5. Now I think it's at 5.5. So, that tells me the Dolphins should easily win this game. I know obviously it's the NFL, it's not going to be easy. You look at the Saints, they're favored by 10 over the Bucks. No one's expecting the Saints to lose, and obviously the Saints are at home, but regardless, when you got a road team and you're favored by that much, I mean, that's a lot. That's big for when you're looking at odds and whatnot.
I don't know. It just seems to me that, again, like if people want to call out like folks like us who say that we know a lot about the Dolphins and like we get called out for how dare you assume you know more than the coaches or you know more than the general manager and all that stuff. I don't see why they listen to Vegas. I guess it's just because they have a better handle on their money and it can help them personally and as an individual. Like, oh well, they're going to help me make money, so I'm going to listen to them. We don't help them.
Not many people make money against Vegas.
Well, this is true, but they have that opportunity. I guess I don't know. I'm not a gambling man. I don't see the appeal.
No, I understand. This is the first year I've ever paid attention to really the point spread and the odds and the over-unders. But if you look at the historical trends, Vegas is right way more than wrong. Obviously, you're going to have the upsets and you're going to have everything else, but I take stock in what they do.
I don't understand.
I think they're, I mean, to me, it's if you follow football, it's obvious the Dolphins are a favorite in this game, and I think they'd be a bigger favorite due to the injury report. That's why the injury report is there, by the way, is Vegas. That's why there's an injury report, because it's hard for them to set their lines without knowing who's playing and who's not playing. But with that being said, I think the reason it's not even higher is because of the Washington game. I think people expected Miami to blow Washington out, and they didn't, so that makes them a little more hesitant to say they're going to win this game by 14. It's just, and the NFL is not college football. It just doesn't work that way. Blowouts do happen, but do you know a team that just consistently blows a team out week in and week out like college football? It's not like this Alabama of the world play in the NFL. It's the teams are much more balanced, and so you got to have tight spreads, if you will. And so 5 points is not a wide differential that they're throwing out in Vegas. To me, that's just saying Miami should win the game. That's what it means. But it's one of those things where as long as they execute, as long as Miami doesn't have a bunch of turnovers and they just show up and play their game, they should win. And there's additional significance to this game, other than just the win and loss. And I'm trying to remember what city this was. I want to say it was Orlando, but it was a significant city just the last few weeks in the Florida market, and they dropped Tampa and Jacksonville from their preferred viewership on TV, and they're opening it up to other games. So they're basically, if Jacksonville's playing, they're not necessarily showing the Jacksonville game. They're saying we're going to show the game that has the two teams that maybe like the Green Bay Seattle game. And the point being is and I'm pretty sure it was Orlando. They're realizing that people don't watch the Jacksonville Jaguars right now or the Tampa Bay Buccaneers right now in Orlando that much. They're not getting the viewership they want. And so, to me, in terms of the Dolphins and Stephen Ross, that the Dolphins want to be the premier team in Florida. They want to be the team that people are talking about in other areas of Florida. And so that's what this kind of game is about. Miami should go in there, defeat Jacksonville, and make a statement that we're the original Florida team. We're the team you should be following.
Okay, so yeah, I agree with you.
By the way, guys, this was a really bad idea to drink beer on an empty stomach.
Oh my God, Matt, really?
Normally, I'd be right with you because I'm usually tailgating at this time, but I go to the Iowa Hawkeye games and they're playing at 7 o'clock tonight, so I'm not going to be kicking it off for a few more hours yet.
Just don't retch on the air, okay?
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, great.
No
okay.
No promises.
No promises. Okay. Where's Kathy? I need her here to keep an eye on you. So let's just
having a tax sale right now, so that's why I'm home alone.
All right. So yeah, somebody needs to be watching you. Apparently, you have problems. Okay, so let's go.
Cheese.
All right, so we're gonna transition into the next part. Let's take a look at some key matchups. I want each of you to give me a matchup that you may be keeping an eye on very closely, and I want you to explain to me why you feel that it's going to be a key matchup. Chad, you go first.
My number one right now is Brandon Albert at left tackle. As you guys know, I did a film review, and I looked at pretty well every single play from the Redskins game, and he surprised me and disappointed me at the same time. He was very good at getting out of his stances, and he pass blocked at a very high level against the Redskins, but he definitely struggled drive blocking. He missed some blocks in the run game, and he was probably one of the worst linemen on the team in the run game, and that was one of the reasons I don't think Miami was even attempting to run early on. And I'm sure that Jacksonville's coaches are going to see that on tape, and so I'm curious to see if they're going to attack Brandon Albert a little bit with blitzes and maybe even try to match Audric up on Brandon Albert to see if they can take advantage of him. And so I'm curious to see how much he progresses from the first week to the next week. And he's not back to 100% by any means. He's playing and he's back, but he's not playing at the level he was last year. And so I'm really concerned that how is he going to hold up when we get some elite defensive ends on him, or what if teams start to try to exploit him? The second one is Rashad Jones. I'm assuming he's not going to play. I know that he's practicing and they're back and forth with it, but he has a hamstring, and hamstrings are so easy to re-injure even when you can play on them. And so it's vital we have him, I think, for the Buffalo game. And so I'm kind of hoping that they just use Michael Thomas. And so it'll be interesting to see if Jacksonville tries to use a strategy to take advantage of our safeties if Rashad Jones is out. So those would probably be my two biggest ones.
Yeah, the thing with Brandon Albert is that he's not actually hurt anymore. He said ad nauseum that his knee is healthy, and to the point where he said, "Stop asking me already. I'm fine. I'm not hurt anymore." His issue right now is just getting back into actual football shape. When he said that he felt like he got hit by a Mack truck, he was referring to the fact that he was exhausted because he's healthy. That's fine. He's great. He's healthy, but he's not. He has to get his strength and conditioning back into the game. He's still better than whatever Jason Fox could offer, but by no means is he at full strength just yet. He's still got a long way to go before he becomes that Brandon Albert. And as long as he manages to not get hurt again, eventually he will become that, because strength and conditioning you can always get back, but your injury is another issue. And Rashad Jones is something else entirely. Rashad Jones, if he's not healthy, the drop off to Michael Thomas, I won't say it's like dooming, but Michael Thomas is not Rashad Jones, and I'll pretty much just leave it at that. All right,
yeah,
so
go ahead. I was going to mention too, Louis. This is just something that I would strongly consider. I don't see the Dolphins doing it, but I think in any situation, if they've got a 3rd and 1 or something along those lines where they got to convert, I would strongly consider pulling Brandon Alberts out and putting Billy Turner in when it's an obvious run game. I know they won't do that, but Billy Turner, despite him being inexperienced, he's one of the best drive blockers on the team. And so if all you're asking him to do is just push the guy in front of him, he's going to be better than Brandon Alberts at this stage. And so I don't know if you'd ever see Miami consider doing that, putting him in just for 3rd and 1s when he's got to drive forward and not have to worry about schemes or pass blocks or anything. But anyway, that's my 2 cents.
If you're going to put him in at left tackle, then you're right, Chad. They're never going to do that because Billy Turner has not left the right guard position all training camp and preseason long. Like, he hasn't even sniffed the left side of the line. So absolutely not. He's not going to wind up at left tackle for any reason. All right, Matt, your turn.
I'm going to keep my eye on Dominican Sue, and mainly because I want to see how he responds to his performance from last week, where he was constantly cut blocked and everything else. And moving on from Sue, I'm going to look at the entire defensive line. OV is probably going to be playing, so I want to see if he sets the edge better. Wake is questionable, so is Shelby, I believe. So you might see some Chris McCain in there. I want to see how these guys respond to being rushed on last week. And it's not Sue's fault because they ran away from him. So these guys need to respond, set the edge better, and make the plays and allow their linebackers to roam free. So that's what I'm going to be keeping an eye on. But the vast majority of the game is the defensive line.
And that's the thing is that and that's actually an interesting point. Chris McCain, according to Barry Jackson of the Miami Herald, Chris McCain has taken all of his snaps this week at defensive end. So it shows that they're looking to make him a pure pass rusher all over again, which at this point, considering how badly he looked near the tail end of training camp and preseason at linebacker, I don't really have a problem with. I know Chris McCain knows how to pass rush, and maybe that's why his I want to say his fire, because last year I saw the same thing in Chris McCain that I saw in Jarvis Landry. There was this passion, this fire about him. He wanted to be incredible. He wanted to make plays, and when he got the chance, he did it. But this year, it seems like it's just not there. It seems like there's something missing. It wasn't last year's Chris McCain. I don't know if it was because of the defense, he didn't know about it. Of course, now that doesn't seem to be an excuse because he says now he does know it. I don't know if it's maybe something wrong with an injury. I don't know if it's a strength and conditioning problem. I don't know if it was because he was trying to bite off more than he could chew. But there was something missing. It wasn't Chris McCain anymore. Maybe switching him to defensive end and letting him pass rush almost exclusively will bring it back, but I don't know. Something seemed like there was off about Chris McCain.
I don't know that we'll see much of it. You're only going to see him in 3rd and longs, rushing a passer, and I mean, like, not 3rd and 8. I mean, it's going to have to be like 3rd and 10 or longer, where clearly they'd be in the shotgun throwing the football. And he was playing that role in the preseason, and he just did not look good. He was not getting the heat you would expect him to get on a quarterback against, like a 3rd-string offensive lineman in the preseason. So I don't know that he'll have a huge impact in the game in terms of reps, if they'll have him in there very much anyway. So, I'll be watching Olivier Vernon, but I'm going to be honest. When I rewatched the game, I thought Fide was playing better than Vernon was when Vernon was healthy before he got hurt. Again, what was a move, I don't know what you want to call it. I've been calling it Bush League, but they leg whipped him. They were tripping him. They did it twice with the wide receiver, and they hurt him doing that, by the way, that Olivier Vernon injury. But with that being said, Fide played very well, I thought. I thought he outplayed Shelby and Vernon when he was in there, in particular with his ability to rush the passer and how he was playing in run defense. So I'm hoping to see some more Fide, because I actually think he may be a little bit better at rushing the passer than Vernon. I don't think he's a more complete player by any means. Vernon is very good at dropping into coverage. He's very good at setting the edge. And so, well, he's a DN. You don't want him to be dropping in coverage on a regular basis. But I guess I'm making the point is I'd be much more worried about Cam Wake being out than Olivier Vernon in terms of our pass rush.
That I'll agree with for sure. So Fide is being touted as possibly the replacement for Vernon coming into next year, because Vernon is in a contract year and everybody's expecting him to get paid somewhere else because we can't afford him. But if what you're saying is true, Chad, then Fide is the only reason, and I do mean the only reason, why I'm not exactly freaking out about the idea of losing Olivier Vernon, because Terrence Fide, 7th round pick or not, has a lot of potential, and he's been showing it all preseason long. And so far, just into the first week of the season, he's continuing that sort of development. Like, look at me, I can handle this. And that's something that a lot of people will probably look at and think, well, he's 7th-round draft pick, and we're losing our starter on the line. Because this is the national media, when they talk about things, they don't know really the nuances of the game with each team specifically. They know quarterback plus starter plus whatever equals something. So you have this little weird formula, this little algebra problem that they like to solve and then say that this is the end-all be-all, but they don't know that Terrence Fede is a really good young backup. They don't know that Terrence Fede is developing into somebody who could potentially take over for Vernon. All they know is that a starter left Miami, so that means that they are now in need of a replacement because starter was starting and the other person there was not. So if Fede can take over for Vernon, I will miss Vernon. He's a very nice guy. He was at the mom's clinic a few months last year. He's an awesome individual. I will miss him as a person, but as a football player, if we can have somebody to back him up, if we can have somebody who can take his place in Terrence Fede, in that aspect, I will not miss him.
I think he can, Lewis. I mean, well, there's a lot of season to go yet, so we have to see. And I like Olivier Vernon a lot as in general, and he's one of these guys that are a true Miami guy. You know, he played at the U. He's been a huge community guy. He's a really good guy, and he's a fantastic athlete. He's probably the best athlete on the defensive line. But you don't ever see him being extremely disruptive in the pass rush. I mean, he gets his sacks, but he's also getting a ton of reps to get those sacks. And every game there's a few plays where Cameron Wake just smokes the tackle, and he gets in there and he just completely destroys whatever the offense is trying to do. And he gets a sack or he causes a turnover. He has, those impact plays, and I look at Olivier Vernon. Like I said, I look at a solid football player, but he just doesn't ever take a game over by just blowing by the offensive tackle and going in there and blowing up the play. He gets sacks here and there, but you kind of know what I'm saying. He just doesn't have that high impact.
You're saying he's not a disruptive individual, and I can agree with that. However, I would throw this in. Generally, the left tackle is supposed to be the best player on the offensive line, and that's the guy that Olivier Vernon is going up against every single game. He's not going up against the right tackle that Cameron Wake gets to face off against, because the left tackle is the guy who's in charge of protecting the quarterback's blind side more often than not. So he's facing the best, and Cameron Wake is facing the other guy.
Right. Yeah, that's true. I mean, that's a valid point. He's probably is playing a better player typically on his downs than Cameron Wake is. But yeah, I'd like to see him become a little more dominant, a little more disruptive. Because to me, Olivier Vernon is a good defensive end, but if we get into the offseason and he's getting a massive deal, I just don't see that it's making sense not to have Fede, go in there and just get another DN lined up. But, we'll see. There's a lot of season left. But I think we are going to see more Fede in this game just because I don't think Olivier Vernon's 100%. I know he's going to be able to play. He's not hurt badly. I think he just had a bad bruise or something along those lines, or he twisted his ankle maybe. I can't remember exactly what happened. But he was playing on it in the Washington game. He just was gimpy. So I expect he'll be back. But I think you'll get a few more reps out of Fede because of that. So I'd just like to see him get some more game exposure because I do believe Fede is better exploding off the ball towards the quarterback than Olivier Vernon. I don't know that I can say he's going to be better at all aspects than Olivier Vernon by any means, but he's got a lot of potential, that's for sure.
I'm going to bring this up real quick since we're talking about the defensive line, and maybe one of you can explain to me what happened exactly because I think I missed it. Derek Shelby is on the injury report, but it's not for any injury that you would normally expect to see. He apparently had some really ugly black eye, and I don't remember when that play could have happened that he wound up getting that black eye. Did you guys see anything? When did that actually happen?
I didn't see it, but I know he got poked in the eye during the game.
That's what I heard. It's like he got poked in the. Okay, when did he get poked in the eye? It's like did he take his helmet off and somebody got mad at him and just went? Bing? I don't remember that.
Probably during the play.
Then somebody needs to get that man a visor.
Exactly. Yeah. That's some players don't like them, but I mean that's what they're for, so you don't have that happen.
And I'm stunned that I get the idea. I get why it's on the list. I mean, a poke you in the eye like a little push and the shove is no big deal, really. It'll stop hurting after a little while. But if somebody like during a football game you get smacked in your eye, yeah, that's gonna hurt for a while. But it's odd. It's an odd injury. It's not something you normally see like a hamstring or even a groin injury. It's like you got poked in the eye and now you're questionable in the injury report. I'm not gonna make fun of them, but for that, but it's like that's just weird. It's weird. So we're gonna wrap this up. We've already pretty much discussed everything there is to discuss. So I'm gonna ask you guys one at a time. I'm gonna ask for predictions and what do you expect to see? What do you expect the final score to be? And then we'll wrap this up. Chad, you're up. What's your prediction? What do you expect to see?
I predict that Miami's going to win this game by 14 points or more, and the reasons are that the matchups that I was most worried about were the Jaguars' defensive line against our offensive line, and two of their starters are out on the D line, so that negates that advantage that Jacksonville would have had. And I was also worried about Julian Thomas against our linebacking core, and that's been negated. That's not a matchup they have in their favor anymore. And it's in Florida, even though it's not in Miami. This isn't going to be. I don't believe they're going to have a real hostile crowd. I don't think that the Jacksonville people are real like rah 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 about their team right now. And I think there'll be a lot of Dolphins fans there. And so I don't think it's going to be a real hostile environment. And without it being a long travel, I really feel like Tannehill is going to have a much better game. He was just a little bit off. He didn't have a terrible game, but he was a little off. And so I think Tannehill's going to get right back on track. And I think Miami's going to be lighting up the scoreboard on this defense with all those injuries. So as soon as that happens, I'm hoping that creates that storm where I wanted, where we put Blake Bortles in a situation where he has to pass. So I feel really good about this matchup for the Dolphins. So I'm going to say final score Miami 35, Jacksonville 14.
Whew. Okay, so actually, let me just segue this really quick since you brought it up. Do you think that Tannehill's offness, that's not a word, but I just made it up, so it's a word now. I just said so. Do you think his offness was due to the fact that apparently he was trying to be more aggressive with his passing? Because we saw him make a few throws that we wouldn't expect him to even try going into the past couple of years.
No, I don't think he was. Usually, when you say quarterback's getting too aggressive, that means he's throwing a lot of high risk pass. Tannehill had a couple of bad passes. He did get lucky; they weren't picked off. But I don't believe he was throwing into real heavy coverages over and over and trying to force balls in there that are very difficult. I think he was just a little bit off on his accuracy, and I think part of it was probably because it was an away game to start the season. The Washington crowd was a little more hostile than you're going to probably face in Jacksonville, even though he had a high contingent of Miami fans there. That's just, I've seen a lot of good quarterbacks that are a little off on their early games, so it didn't really concern me. But that was the reason we didn't blow the Redskins out, was he just was a little bit off on some of his passes, and that makes you have third and outs, and that makes you miss scoring opportunities and things like that. And I expect him to get a lot more back on track this game. And I would say keep a close eye on Jordan Cameron. I think he's really starting to mesh well with Tannehill, and it's very difficult to contain Jordan Cameron when Miami runs those read options with Tannehill and Lamar Miller, because those linebackers have to become so preoccupied with trying to stop Lamar Miller from ripping off those runs or Tannehill from tucking it and taking off. And you throw Jordan Cameron in there forcing the seam on him, he's going to get some open looks. So Tannehill seems to really, of anybody throwing vertical routes, Tannehill seems to be able to hit Cameron really well. And so I'm looking for a big game out of him.
Well, I asked because it's like, particularly on the Deion Sims play, when Tannehill threw that ball into the end zone, there was somebody who had said that why did he throw it there? He had Landry open in the seam, I believe, was the statement. And of course, Landry is his top target, so it's not like he's gonna just ignore Jarvis Landry. But he decided to go for it all in the end zone to Deion Sims, and I thought maybe that's what I was referring to when I'm saying more aggressive, not necessarily higher risk throws, just more along the lines of he's going for more home runs, so to speak, than he normally does.
Well, it's easy. People say that it's easy to look at a still frame or look at a replay and say, "Why didn't you do this?" But the speed at which that game is moving, the NFL, is unbelievable. And so, what I look for my quarterback is not to see the whole field and look for a breakdown in coverage. I'm looking for him to throw to a guy that was the route. He saw the defense, and Deion Sims had a one-on-one matchup, and that was not a horrible throw. It was a little off, but he placed that ball about where you want to put it. You don't want to have it on the other side of Deion Sims because then you're putting it at risk of being able to be picked off. And so, yeah, he may have missed an open receiver where he didn't see him on the field in time. But what I don't like seeing are quarterbacks that don't understand the coverages and they're just throwing passes into coverage or they're throwing it up. And to me, that's your number one sign of desperation when a quarterback is no longer dropping back trying to realize where the gaps in the coverage are to hit the open guy. They're just chucking it up in the air to a receiver, running down the field. And so I didn't see much at all where Tannehill was confused or he wasn't reading it right. He just missed some open people. That's all that happened.
Okay, I get you. How about you, Matt? Prediction?
Last week I think I predicted the Dolphins to beat the Redskins 27-10 or 27-14. I was a little close, right?
Yeah, a little.
Not really. I do think the Dolphins are going to cover the spread. I do think the Dolphins are going to win. I think they're going to win by maybe 7, maybe 10. I think the Jaguars will put up 14. I think the Dolphins will put up 24. So I'm going to go 24-14.
Okay. I'm gonna go with a score of 24 to. I'm gonna go with a score with 24-17. And again, I think it's gonna be closer than people want. But as long as we put up a good fight, I'm not gonna have a problem with it. I refuse to predict a blowout at this point because I kind of don't want to jinx it. Let's call this betting against. Let me try this reverse psychology approach. I think the Dolphins are going to win, but it's by 24-17, not by the big blowout again. Like I don't even know if they're predicting it because they really believe it or because they just really want to see this new look offense absolutely annihilate some poor sappy team who's not expecting to get absolutely blown out of the water. Like, I understand it's the big flare. Look, we beat the Chargers last year. We were at that game. We all enjoyed it. We watched Phillip Rivers hit the ground more times than he could probably count. We saw him get replaced by the backup, and then the backup backed out and put Rivers back out there because he's like, heck no, I ain't going back out there again. You go take your deal. So I'm going to predict 24-17, and that's going to be it for this show. And hey, we did our preview. It wasn't a whole lot, and there really isn't much to talk about. So we have to wait until the next game is over before we can really analyze this. We're going to get a guest. We're going to get a guest or something next week. So that's going to be it for Chad Ronenbaum and Matthew Kanata. I'm gonna say good night. I can't say good night. I'm gonna say good afternoon within a minute. So in a minute it's gonna be noon. So I'm gonna say good afternoon to everybody, and we'll see tomorrow for the game against the Jaguars. Dolphins Jaguars 4:00. So see you all next time.